Dr. Elena Martinez adjusted her thick-rimmed glasses and pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders as she entered the grand conference hall at Harvard University. The room buzzed with excitement as hundreds of archaeologists, historians, and linguists gathered for the most prestigious Maya Studies conference of the year. Elite scholars from around the world had come to present their latest findings about the ancient civilization that had captivated researchers for decades. Elena clutched her worn leather briefcase and scanned the room for an empty seat. The front rows were already filled with distinguished professors and department heads, their expensive suits and confident postures marking them as the academic elite. She spotted a small folding chair tucked away in the far corner, partially hidden behind a large pillar. Perfect, she thought. She could observe without drawing attention to herself. As she settled into her seat, Elena couldn't help but overhear the conversations around her. Dr. Richard Pemberton, a renowned Harvard professor, was holding court near the front of the room. His voice carried clearly as he discussed his latest excavation in Guatemala. The Maya writing system remains one of archaeology's greatest mysteries, he declared to his captive audience. Despite decades of research, we've barely scratched the surface. The glyphs are simply too complex, too alien to our way of thinking. I doubt we'll ever fully understand their true meaning. Several other prominent researchers nodded in agreement. Dr. Sarah Chen from Yale added, "The mathematical precision required to decode these texts is beyond anything we've encountered in ancient civilizations. It would take a genius-level understanding of both linguistics and mathematics to crack their code." Elena shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She had heard similar statements countless times throughout her career. The academic world seemed convinced that the Maya script would forever remain partially decoded, a tantalizing puzzle that would never be completely solved. She thought back to her childhood in a small town in New Mexico, where her grandmother, Rosa Martinez, had first sparked her fascination with ancient cultures. Rosa wasn't an educated woman by traditional standards, but she possessed a wisdom about patterns and symbols that had shaped Elena's entire worldview. While other children played video games, Elena spent hours with her grandmother, learning to see connections that others missed. "Mija," Rosa would say in her gentle voice. "Every symbol tells a story. You just have to learn to listen with your heart, not just your mind." Those words had guided Elena through her undergraduate years at a small state university, where she had double majored in mathematics and anthropology. Her professors were impressed by her unique approach to ancient languages, but they also warned her about the challenges ahead. The field of Maya studies was dominated by established scholars from prestigious institutions, and breaking through would be nearly impossible for someone from her background. Undeterred, Elena had applied to Stanford's doctoral program, one of the most competitive in the world. To everyone's surprise, including her own, she was accepted with a full scholarship. Her research proposal had focused on applying advanced mathematical modeling to Maya hieroglyphs, an approach that most considered too ambitious. The years at Stanford had been both exhilarating and isolating. While her fellow graduate students came from wealthy families and elite undergraduate institutions, Elena worked part-time jobs to supplement her stipend. She spent countless nights in the library, poring over ancient texts and developing complex algorithms that could identify patterns invisible to the human eye. Her advisor, Dr. Michael Harrison, had been supportive but cautious. "Elena, your work is groundbreaking," he would tell her during their weekly meetings. "But the Maya research community is very traditional. They might not be ready for such a radical departure from conventional methods now." Sitting in this conference hall surrounded by the very establishment Dr. Harrison had warned her about, Elena felt the familiar mixture of excitement and anxiety that had accompanied her throughout graduate school. In her briefcase lay a laptop containing 5 years of painstaking research, mathematical models that had revealed patterns in Maya, writing that no one had ever suspected. The conference moderator stepped up to the podium, calling for attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 47th Annual Conference on Maya Studies. Today we'll hear presentations from some of our field's most distinguished researchers." As the first speaker took the stage, Elena noticed how the audience leaned forward with interest. These were people who commanded respect, whose words carried weight in the academic world. Their research grants funded expeditions to remote jungles. Their publications shaped how the world understood ancient civilizations. Elena glanced down at her simple clothes and scuffed shoes. She had saved for months to afford the conference registration fee, and her hotel room was a budget motel 20 minutes away from campus. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was the revolutionary discovery stored on her laptop, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. The first few presentations followed predictable patterns. Scholars discussed pottery fragments, architectural measurements, and incremental advances in understanding Maya calendar systems. The audience applauded politely, but Elena could sense the underlying frustration. Despite all the prestigious institutions and generous funding, progress in Maya studies had been slow. During a coffee break, Elena overheard Dr. Pemberton speaking to a group of colleagues. "Frankly, I'm beginning to think we've reached the limits of what's possible with Maya hieroglyphs," he said with a resigned shrug. "Perhaps some ancient mysteries are meant to remain unsolved." Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "The statistical probability of making a major breakthrough at this point is incredibly low. We've had the world's best minds working on this for generations." Elena sipped her coffee and said nothing, but her heart raced. If only they knew what she had discovered in her small Stanford office, working alone with nothing but determination and her grandmother's voice echoing in her memory. The patterns were there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone with the right combination of mathematical insight and intuitive understanding to reveal them. As the conference resumed, Elena made a decision that would change her life forever. She approached the registration desk with trembling hands and asked if there were any slots available for last-minute presentations. The coordinator, a harried graduate student, barely looked up from her clipboard. "Actually, we just had a cancellation," she said. "Dr. Williams from UC Berkeley had to leave unexpectedly. Would you be interested in filling his slot tomorrow morning?" Elena's pulse quickened. Tomorrow morning would be the final session, when the most important discoveries were typically presented. It was the perfect opportunity to share her work with the entire Maya research community. "Yes," she said quietly. "I'd like to present my research on mathematical patterns in Maya hieroglyphic writing." The coordinator glanced up, taking in Elena's unremarkable appearance and uncertain expression. "Do you have your abstract ready? And your institutional affiliation?" "Stanford University," Elena replied, her voice growing stronger. "And yes, I have my abstract." As she handed over the document she had prepared months earlier, Elena felt her grandmother's presence beside her. Rosa Martinez had never lived to see her granddaughter earn a PhD from one of the world's most prestigious universities, but her spirit had guided every step of this incredible journey. Tomorrow, Elena would step out of the shadows and into the spotlight, carrying with her a discovery that would revolutionize the field of Maya studies forever. Elena barely slept that night in her modest motel room. She sat cross-legged on the bed, her laptop open, reviewing the presentation that would either launch her career or end it before it truly began. The mathematical models glowing on her screen represented 5 years of obsessive work, countless sleepless nights, and the approach to Maya hieroglyphs that challenged everything the academic establishment believed. She had first stumbled upon the breakthrough during her 3rd year at Stanford. While analyzing a series of Maya codices from the classic period, she noticed something that other researchers had dismissed as coincidence. Certain glyphs appeared in sequences that seemed random to the human eye, but when she applied advanced statistical analysis, clear patterns emerged. The key had been treating Maya writing not just as a linguistic system, but as a complex mathematical framework. Elena discovered that the ancient scribes had embedded numerical relationships within their texts, creating layers of meaning that went far beyond simple communication. It was as if they had developed a form of writing that functioned simultaneously as literature, mathematics, and astronomical calculation. Her advisor, Dr. Harrison, had been initially skeptical. "Elena, you're essentially claiming that the Maya created the world's first multimedia writing system," he had said during one of their meetings. "The implications are staggering, but you'll need absolute proof before presenting this to the academic community." That proof had come through months of painstaking verification. Elena had tested her mathematical models against every available Maya text, from stone monuments to bark paper books. The patterns held consistent across different time periods, geographical regions, and subject matters. She had discovered what appeared to be a master key to understanding Maya civilization, at a level no previous researcher had achieved. Now, As dawn broke over Cambridge, Elena prepared for the most important day of her life. She dressed carefully in her best professional outfit, a navy blazer and skirt that she had purchased specifically for job interviews. Looking in the mirror, she still appeared young and uncertain, hardly the image of a revolutionary researcher about to shake the foundations of Maya studies. The conference hall was packed for the final morning session. Elena had arrived early and claimed the same corner seat, but now she felt exposed rather than hidden. Her name appeared on the program as the last presenter. Dr. Elena Martinez, Stanford University, Mathematical Foundations of Maya Hieroglyphic Communication. As the morning progressed, Elena listened to presentation after presentation, each following the familiar patterns of incremental academic research. Dr. Pemberton spoke about pottery sherds from a recently excavated site in Belize. A team from the University of Texas presented their analysis of architectural alignments at Chichen Itza. The work was solid, but it represented the slow, methodical approach that had characterized Maya studies for decades. During each presentation, Elena noticed the same underlying assumption, that Maya writing was fundamentally similar to other ancient scripts, perhaps more complex but operating on the same basic principles as Egyptian hieroglyphs or Sumerian cuneiform. No one questioned whether the Maya might have developed something entirely different, a form of communication that transcended traditional categories. The audience grew restless as the morning wore on. These were busy academics with packed schedules, and Elena could sense their eagerness to conclude the conference and return to their respective institutions. When the moderator finally called her name, a subtle shift occurred in the room's energy. People glanced at their watches and shuffled their papers, preparing to leave. Elena walked to the podium on unsteady legs, carrying her laptop and a small remote for the projection system. The walk felt endless, each step echoing in the suddenly quiet hall. She could feel hundreds of eyes upon her, evaluating her appearance, her youth, her obvious nervousness. "Good morning," she began, her voice barely audible. Several people in the back rows stood to leave, clearly uninterested in hearing from an unknown graduate student. Elena's heart sank, but then she remembered her grandmother's words about listening with both heart and mind. She cleared her throat and spoke louder. "My name is Elena Martinez, and I'm here to share a discovery that will change how we understand Maya civilization." The bold statement caused some of the departing attendees to pause. Dr. Pemberton, who had been gathering his materials, looked up with raised eyebrows. The room fell silent, but Elena could sense skepticism rather than interest in the audience's attention. "For the past 5 years, I've been applying advanced mathematical analysis to Maya hieroglyphic texts," Elena continued, gaining confidence as she spoke. "What I've discovered challenges our fundamental assumptions about how this writing system operates." She clicked her remote, and the first slide appeared on the large screen behind her. It showed a section of Maya text from the Dresden Codex, one of the most famous surviving Maya books. The audience recognized the glyphs immediately, but Elena's presentation highlighted mathematical relationships that no one had ever noticed. "Traditional approaches to Maya writing have focused on linguistic decipherment," Elena explained. "But what if the Maya weren't just writing in the way we understand writing? What if they created a system that embedded mathematical, astronomical, and linguistic information simultaneously?" A murmur rippled through the audience. Dr. Chen leaned forward in her seat, her earlier skepticism replaced by curiosity. Even Dr. Pemberton had stopped packing his briefcase and was studying the screen intently. Elena advanced to her next slide, showing a complex diagram that mapped numerical relationships within Maya texts. "Using statistical analysis and pattern recognition algorithms, I've identified what appears to be a mathematical framework underlying all Maya writing. Every glyph doesn't just represent a word or concept. It also functions as part of an intricate numerical system." The room was completely silent now. Elena could see confusion, disbelief, and growing excitement on the faces before her. She had their attention, but she knew the real challenge was just beginning. Extraordinary claims required extraordinary evidence, and she was about to present findings that would either establish her as a groundbreaking researcher or destroy her credibility forever. "The implications are profound," Elena continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "If my analysis is correct, Maya scribes weren't just recording information. They were creating multi-dimensional texts that functioned simultaneously as literature, mathematics, astronomy, and historical records. They developed the world's first truly multimedia writing system, centuries before we thought such complexity was possible. Dr. Pemberton stood up, his expression a mixture of fascination and skepticism. Dr. Martinez, these are remarkable claims, but surely you understand that such revolutionary interpretations require extensive peer review and verification. Elena nodded respectfully. Of course, Dr. Pemberton. That's exactly why I'm presenting this research to the community. But I believe the evidence speaks for itself. She clicked to her next slide, showing a Maya text alongside her mathematical analysis. This passage from the Palenque inscriptions has puzzled researchers for decades. Traditional translation methods suggest it's a simple historical record about a ruler's coronation. But when we apply mathematical analysis, additional layers of meaning emerge. The slide transformed, highlighting numerical relationships that created a secondary narrative embedded within the primary text. The audience gasped as Elena demonstrated how the same glyphs that told a king's story also contained precise astronomical calculations predicting eclipses decades into the future. The Maya scribes weren't just historians, Elena declared, her grandmother's wisdom flowing through her words. They were encoding multiple types of information into single texts, creating documents that served simultaneously as literature, scientific records, and mathematical proofs. They achieved a level of intellectual sophistication that we're only beginning to comprehend. The reaction was immediate and intense. Some researchers began taking furious notes, while others shook their heads in disbelief. Elena had opened a door to an entirely new understanding of Maya civilization, but she could see that convincing the academic establishment would require more than a single presentation. As she prepared to reveal her most significant discovery, Elena felt her grandmother's presence beside her once again. The quiet woman from New Mexico who had never set foot in a university was about to help her granddaughter revolutionize one of archaeology's most challenging fields. Elena took a deep breath and clicked to her most crucial slide. The screen displayed what appeared to be a simple Maya glyph sequence from a temple wall in Tikal, but Elena's analysis revealed something extraordinary. The mathematical patterns she had identified weren't just present in individual texts. They formed a master code that connected Maya writings across different cities, time periods, and subject matters. What you're seeing here, Elena announced, her voice carrying across the now completely silent auditorium, is evidence of a unified mathematical language that linked the entire Maya civilization. Every major site, from Palenque to Copan, from Tikal to Chichen Itza, used the same underlying mathematical framework in their writing systems. Dr. Sarah Chen from Yale stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Dr. Martinez, are you suggesting that the Maya had a standardized writing system more sophisticated than anything we've seen in other ancient civilizations? That would imply a level of communication and coordination between cities that contradicts everything we know about Maya political organization. Elena had anticipated this question. The traditional view of Maya civilization portrayed independent city-states that occasionally cooperated but remained largely isolated from each other. Her discovery suggested something far more complex and interconnected. That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Dr. Chen, Elena replied confidently. The mathematical analysis reveals that Maya scribes across different regions weren't just using similar writing conventions, they were participating in a shared, intellectual tradition that required extensive communication and coordination. She advanced to the next slide, showing a map of the Maya world with mathematical connections highlighted between distant sites. When we analyze the numerical patterns in texts from different cities, we find precise correlations that couldn't have occurred by accident. Scribes in Palenque were using the same mathematical relationships as scribes in Copan, separated by hundreds of miles and decades of time. The audience erupted in whispered conversations. Elena could see some researchers frantically checking their phones, probably already planning to verify her claims using their own data. Others appeared stunned, struggling to process implications that would require them to reconsider decades of established research. Dr. Pemberton raised his hand, his expression serious, but no longer dismissive. Dr. Martinez, if your analysis is accurate, you're describing a level of intellectual achievement that would place the Maya among the most advanced civilizations in human history. The mathematical sophistication required for such a system would rival anything developed in ancient Greece or China. Elena nodded gravely. That's correct, Dr. Pemberton. And I believe we've consistently underestimated Maya intellectual capabilities because we've been approaching their writing system with incorrect assumptions. We've been trying to read Maya texts like simplified versions of other ancient scripts, when in reality they represent something far more advanced. She clicked to her next slide, displaying a section of the Dresden Codex that had puzzled researchers for over a century. This astronomical table has been partially decoded, but previous interpretations suggested the Maya were simply recording celestial observations. My mathematical analysis reveals that they weren't just observing, they were predicting astronomical events with stunning accuracy using complex mathematical models. The slide transformed, showing Elena's computational breakdown of the Maya calculations. The ancient scribes had developed mathematical techniques for predicting planetary movements, eclipse cycles, and seasonal changes that wouldn't be matched by European astronomers until the Renaissance. The Maya didn't just create a writing system, Elena continued, her confidence building as she saw the growing amazement on her audience's faces. They created the world's first integrated information system, combining literature, mathematics, astronomy, and historical records into unified texts that could be read on multiple levels simultaneously. A younger researcher from the University of Pennsylvania stood up, his voice trembling with excitement. Dr. Martinez, are you saying that every Maya text we've partially translated might contain additional layers of meaning that we've never suspected? Elena smiled, remembering how this same question had kept her awake during countless nights at Stanford. Not just additional meanings, Dr. Rodriguez, she replied, reading his name tag. Entirely different types of information. A Maya text about a king's coronation might simultaneously contain mathematical proofs, astronomical predictions, and encoded messages for future generations. They achieved a level of information density that we're only now beginning to understand. The implications hit the room like a wave. Elena could see researchers mentally reviewing years of their own work, wondering what they might have missed. If Elena was correct, the entire field of Maya studies would need to be rebuilt from the ground up. Dr. Chen sat back down heavily, her face pale. Dr. Martinez, do you understand what you're suggesting? If Maya writing contains multiple layers of mathematical information, then every translation, every interpretation, every conclusion we've drawn about Maya civilization could be incomplete or incorrect. Elena nodded solemnly. That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Dr. Chen. But rather than seeing this as a failure of previous research, I prefer to think of it as an opportunity. We have the chance to rediscover Maya civilization with fresh eyes, to understand their true intellectual achievements for the first time. She advanced to her final analytical slide, showing a complete mathematical breakdown of a Maya text from the classic period. The analysis revealed layers upon layers of meaning, historical narrative, astronomical calculations, mathematical proofs, and what appeared to be encoded instructions for performing complex ceremonies. The Maya weren't just writing, Elena declared, her grandmother's wisdom flowing through her words. They were creating multi-dimensional information storage systems that preserved knowledge across generations in ways we've never fully appreciated. Every stone monument, every painted book, every carved inscription was designed to function as both communication and calculation, both art and science. The audience sat in stunned silence, absorbing the magnitude of Elena's claims. If her research was validated, it would revolutionize not just Maya studies but our entire understanding of ancient intellectual achievement. The quiet graduate student in the corner had potentially uncovered one of archaeology's greatest discoveries. Dr. Pemberton finally broke the silence, his voice respectful but cautious. Dr. Martinez, your research appears rigorous and your method sophisticated. But extraordinary claims require extraordinary verification. How do you propose we validate these findings? Elena had prepared for this crucial moment throughout her years at Stanford. She knew that presenting revolutionary research was only the first step. Convincing the academic establishment would require extensive collaboration and verification. I've prepared detailed mathematical models and analysis protocols that can be applied to any Maya text, she replied. My computer algorithms can identify the numerical patterns in any hieroglyphic sequence, and I'm prepared to share all of my data and methods with the research community for independent verification. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces before her. Some showed excitement, others skepticism, but all reflected the recognition that they had witnessed something unprecedented. Elena Martinez, the quiet woman from New Mexico who had sat unnoticed in the corner, had just presented evidence that could transform humanity's understanding of one of history's greatest civilizations. "I'm not asking anyone to accept my conclusions based on faith," Elena concluded. "I'm asking the Maya research community to examine the evidence with open minds and rigorous methods. If my analysis is correct, we're on the verge of unlocking secrets that the Maya preserved for us across more than 1,000 years." As she stepped away from the podium, Elena felt her grandmother's proud presence surrounding her. The journey from that small town in New Mexico to this moment of revelation had been long and challenging, but Rosa Martinez's wisdom about patterns and symbols had guided her granddaughter to one of archaeology's greatest discoveries. The applause that erupted after Elena's presentation was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It started slowly, with a few researchers clapping uncertainly, but quickly built into thunderous appreciation that filled the entire auditorium. Elena stood frozen at the podium, overwhelmed by the response to work she had conducted in solitude for so many years. Dr. Pemberton was the first to approach her as she gathered her materials. His expression had transformed completely from the dismissive skepticism he had displayed earlier. "Dr. Martinez, I owe you an apology," he said, extending his hand. "What you've presented today could be the most significant breakthrough in Maya studies in my lifetime." Before Elena could respond, she found herself surrounded by researchers eager to discuss her findings. Dr. Chen pushed through the crowd, her eyes bright with excitement. "Elena, may I call you Elena? I need to understand your methodology. The mathematical models you've developed could revolutionize how we approach ancient languages across multiple civilizations." The questions came rapidly from all directions. How long had she been working on this research? What specific algorithms had she developed? Could her methods be applied to other undeciphered writing systems? Elena answered as best she could, but she felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Dr. Rodriguez from the University of Pennsylvania was particularly enthusiastic. "Elena, I've been working on inscriptions from Karakol for my dissertation. Would you be willing to analyze them using your mathematical framework? If you're correct about multiple layers of meaning, it could completely change my interpretation of the site's history." Elena nodded eagerly. This was exactly the kind of collaboration she had hoped for. "Of course, Dr. Rodriguez. Send me high-resolution images of the texts and I'll run them through my analysis programs. We should have results within a few days." As the crowd around her gradually dispersed, Elena noticed a familiar figure approaching. Dr. Michael Harrison, her advisor from Stanford, wore an expression of pride mixed with amazement. He had driven up from California specifically to hear her presentation, though Elena hadn't known he would be there. "Elena," he said warmly, placing a fatherly hand on her shoulder, "I knew your research was groundbreaking, but I don't think even I fully understood its implications until hearing you present it today. You've just changed the entire field of Maya studies." Elena felt tears welling up in her eyes. The validation from her mentor meant everything to her. "Dr. Harrison, I couldn't have done this without your guidance and support. Thank you for believing in me when everyone else thought my approach was too unconventional." He smiled broadly. "Elena, unconventional doesn't begin to describe what you've accomplished. You've essentially proven that the Maya developed the world's first multimedia communication system. Do you understand the historical significance of that achievement?" As the conference hall emptied, Elena found herself in conversation with the event coordinator, a graduate student named Jennifer who had checked her in the day before. Jennifer's attitude had changed dramatically since Elena's presentation. "Dr. Martinez, I want to apologize for my dismissive behavior yesterday," Jennifer said earnestly. "I had no idea who you were or the significance of your research. The conference organizers would like to invite you to be our keynote speaker next year." Elena was touched by the apology, though she hardly blamed Jennifer for her initial reaction. "Thank you, Jennifer, but there's no need to apologize. You were just doing your job. As for next year, I'd be honored to participate, though I suspect my schedule is about to become very complicated." Indeed, Elena's phone had been buzzing constantly with messages throughout the afternoon. News of her presentation had spread quickly through the tight-knit Maya research community. She had received invitations to present her findings at universities across the country, offers to collaborate on major research projects, and inquiries from academic publishers interested in her work. That evening, Elena sat in her modest motel room, trying to process the day's events. Her laptop showed dozens of new emails from researchers around the world. Dr. Chen had already sent her a collection of Maya texts from the Yale archives, requesting mathematical analysis. A team from the University of Texas had invited her to join their upcoming excavation in Guatemala, where they hoped to test her theories against newly discovered inscriptions. Most significantly, the National Science Foundation had sent a preliminary inquiry about funding a major research project based on her work. The potential grant would provide resources for a comprehensive reanalysis of Maya writing systems using her mathematical methods. Supported by a team of graduate students and postdoctoral researchers, Elena picked up her phone to call her mother in New Mexico, eager to share the incredible news. Maria Martinez answered on the first ring, her voice filled with concern. "Mija, how did your presentation go? I've been worried about you all day." "Mama," Elena said, her voice catching with emotion, "I think everything is going to change now. The presentation went better than I ever dreamed. People are calling it revolutionary." She could hear her mother's sharp intake of breath. "Elena, are you telling me that my daughter just changed history?" Elena laughed through her tears. "I don't know about changing history, Mama, but I think I've helped reveal some secrets that the Maya left for us to discover. Abuela Rosa would be so proud." "She is proud, Mija," Maria said softly. "I can feel her presence with us tonight. She always knew you were destined for something special." As Elena continued her conversation with her mother, sharing details about the day's remarkable events, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The shy girl who had learned about patterns and symbols from her grandmother had grown into a scholar whose work would influence how humanity understood one of its greatest ancient civilizations. But even as she celebrated this incredible achievement, Elena knew that the real work was just beginning. Her presentation had opened a door, but walking through that door would require years of additional research, collaboration with scholars around the world, and the careful verification of every claim she had made. The academic world was notoriously conservative, and while her initial reception had been overwhelmingly positive, Elena understood that sustained acceptance would require rigorous peer review and extensive testing of her methods. Some researchers would undoubtedly challenge her findings, and she would need to defend her work with evidence and patience. Later that evening, as Elena prepared for bed, she received an unexpected phone call from Dr. James Morrison, the director of the Maya Research Institute at Harvard. His voice carried the weight of authority and tradition that had long defined Maya studies. "Dr. Martinez, I hope you don't mind the late call. I wanted to personally congratulate you on today's remarkable presentation. I've been studying Maya civilization for 40 years, and I've never seen anything quite like what you demonstrated today." Elena was honored by the call but also nervous. Dr. Morrison represented the very establishment that her work challenged. "Thank you, Dr. Morrison. That means a great deal coming from someone of your stature in the field." "Elena, I want to be direct with you," he continued. "Your research has the potential to revolutionize Maya studies, but it will also face significant scrutiny. Are you prepared for the challenges ahead?" Elena considered his question carefully. She had spent 5 years preparing for this moment, but she knew that proving her theories to the satisfaction of the entire academic community would be an even greater challenge. "Dr. Morrison, I understand that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I'm prepared to work with any researcher who wants to test my methods and verify my findings. The truth about Maya civilization is more important than any individual reputation or career." Dr. Morrison's approval was evident in his voice. "That's exactly the attitude this field needs, Elena. I'd like to invite you to spend a sabbatical year at Harvard, working with our Maya research team to expand and verify your findings. Would you be interested in such an opportunity?" Elena's heart raced. A sabbatical at Harvard would provide access to resources and colleagues that could accelerate her research exponentially. It was an opportunity she had never dared to imagine. "Dr. Morrison, I would be honored to accept that invitation." 6 months later, Elena found herself in a completely different world. Her small office at Harvard overlooked the historic campus where some of history's greatest minds had walked. The walls were lined with Maya artifacts on loan from museums around the world, and her desk was covered with high-resolution photographs of hieroglyphic text that she was analyzing using her revolutionary mathematical methods. The transition from unknown graduate student to internationally recognized researcher had been both exhilarating and overwhelming. Elena's phone rang constantly with interview requests from academic journals, invitations to speak at conferences, and proposals for collaborative research projects. The quiet anonymity she had known for most of her life was gone, forever. Dr. Morrison had assembled a team of graduate, students and postdoctoral researchers to work with Elena on expanding her initial discoveries. The group met every morning in a conference room filled with computers, mathematical charts, and Maya reproductions. Elena still couldn't quite believe that she was leading such a distinguished team. "The results from the Copon analysis are extraordinary," announced Dr. Lisa Park, a postdoctoral fellow who had joined the team from the University of California. "Elena's mathematical models have identified patterns in the hieroglyphic stairway that suggest it functions as both historical narrative and astronomical calculator." Elena studied the data on her laptop screen with growing excitement. The hieroglyphic stairway at Copon was one of the Maya world's most complex inscriptions, containing over 2,000 individual glyphs that told the history of the dynasty that ruled the city. Previous researchers had spent decades translating portions of the text, but Elena's mathematical analysis was revealing additional layers of meaning they had never suspected. "Look at this sequence here," Elena said, pointing to a section of the stairway that had puzzled archaeologists for generations. Traditional translation suggests it's describing a military victory in 738 AD. But when we apply mathematical analysis, we discover that the same glyphs also contain precise calculations for predicting Venus cycles 50 years into the future. The implications were staggering. Elena's team was proving that Maya scribes had embedded multiple types of information into their most important inscriptions, creating historical records that also functioned as scientific instruments and educational tools for future generations. Dr. James Patterson, a Maya linguistics expert from the University of Chicago who had joined the Harvard team as a visiting scholar, shook his head in amazement. "Elena, we're essentially discovering that the Maya created the world's first hypertext system, centuries before the concept was developed for computers. Every glyph can be read on multiple levels, with cross-references and embedded calculations that create networks of information. The verification process had been rigorous and sometimes contentious. Elena's methods had been tested against every major Maya text, and while the results consistently supported her theories, some established researchers remained skeptical. The conservative nature of academic archaeology meant that revolutionary discoveries were always met with careful scrutiny. Dr. Richard Pemberton, who had become one of Elena's strongest supporters, visited the Harvard team regularly to observe their work. During one particular visit, he brought news that would further validate Elena's research. "Elena, I have remarkable news from our excavation in Belize," he announced as he entered the conference room. "We've uncovered a previously unknown Maya codex, and it appears to contain explicit instructions for the mathematical encoding you've discovered." Elena's heart raced as Dr. Pemberton showed photographs of the newly discovered bark paper book. The codex was remarkably well preserved, and its pages contained what appeared to be educational materials for training Maya scribes in the complex mathematical writing system Elena had identified. "This is extraordinary," Elena whispered, studying the images. "It's like finding an ancient instruction manual for Maya information technology. These pages show exactly how scribes embedded mathematical relationships into their texts." The discovery provided crucial validation for Elena's work. Independent archaeological evidence now supported her mathematical theories, demonstrating that the Maya had indeed developed sophisticated information encoding systems. Dr. Chen arrived from Yale the following week to examine the new codex personally. She had become one of Elena's closest collaborators, applying the mathematical methods to Chinese oracle bone inscriptions with surprising results. "Elena, this discovery changes everything," she said after spending hours analyzing the codex pages. "We're not just looking at Maya innovation anymore. We're seeing evidence of intellectual achievements that surpass anything we attributed to ancient civilizations. The team's work had attracted international attention beyond the archaeological community. Computer scientists were fascinated by the Maya's early development of multimedia information systems. Mathematicians marveled at the sophistication of their numerical encoding techniques. Linguists recognized that Elena's discoveries challenged fundamental assumptions about how human communication systems develop. Elena received a call from Dr. Maria Santos, a representative from UNESCO, inviting her to present her findings to an international committee considering New World Heritage Site designations. Dr. Martinez, your research suggests that Maya sites contain layers of cultural and intellectual significance we never fully appreciated. This could fundamentally change how we preserve and study ancient civilizations worldwide. The recognition was gratifying, but Elena remained focused on the scientific work. Every day brought new discoveries as her mathematical models revealed hidden patterns in previously analyzed texts. The team had developed sophisticated computer programs that could scan Maya inscriptions and identify embedded mathematical relationships within minutes. During one particularly productive session, graduate student Michael Rodriguez made a breakthrough that left everyone speechless. He had been analyzing inscriptions from the Temple of Inscriptions at Palenque when Elena's algorithms detected an extraordinary pattern. "Professor Martinez, I think you need to see this," Michael said, his voice trembling with excitement. "The mathematical analysis of Kanich Janab Pakal's tomb inscriptions isn't just describing his death and burial. The same text contains detailed astronomical calculations that accurately predict the galactic alignment that occurred in 2012. Elena rushed to Michael's computer terminal, hardly believing what she was seeing. The Maya scribes who had created Pakal's tomb inscriptions in the 7th century AD had embedded calculations predicting astronomical events more than 1,300 years in the future. The precision required for such predictions demonstrated mathematical and astronomical knowledge that rivaled modern capabilities. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Patterson, studying the data over Elena's shoulder. The Maya calculated the precession of the equinoxes with accuracy that wasn't achieved by European astronomers until the Renaissance. How could ancient scribes working with stone tools and bark paper accomplish such precise calculations? Elena felt her grandmother's presence strongly as she contemplated the implications. Rosa Martinez had always insisted that ancient peoples possessed wisdom modern society had forgotten. Now, through mathematical analysis, Elena was proving that her grandmother's intuitions had been remarkably accurate. The team worked late into the night, verifying and re-verifying the calculations. Every test confirmed the stunning accuracy of Maya astronomical predictions embedded within their historical texts. They weren't just recording past events. They were creating time capsules designed to demonstrate their intellectual achievements to future generations. Dr. Morrison visited the team the next morning, drawn by reports of their overnight breakthrough. His expression reflected the awe that Elena's discoveries continued to generate among established scholars. "Elena, your grandmother would be amazed to see what you've accomplished," he said, having learned about Rosa Martinez's influence on Elena's approach to pattern recognition. "Dr. Morrison, I think she knows," Elena replied softly. "Every major discovery feels like she's guiding me toward something." The Maya wanted us to understand about their true capabilities. The Harvard sabbatical was transforming Elena's career in ways she had never imagined. Major universities were competing to offer her permanent positions. Publishing houses wanted to publish her research for general audiences. Documentary filmmakers sought permission to chronicle her discoveries. But Elena's greatest satisfaction came from the scientific work itself. Each decoded text revealed new aspects of Maya intellectual achievement. They had developed mathematical techniques for urban planning, agricultural optimization, and resource management that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of complex systems. Their written records contained engineering specifications for constructing buildings that had survived centuries in challenging tropical environments. Most remarkably, Elena's team discovered evidence that Maya mathematicians had developed concepts that wouldn't be formally recognized by European mathematics until centuries later. Their understanding of zero, infinity, and complex numerical relationships had enabled them to create calculation systems of extraordinary sophistication. As her sabbatical year progressed, Elena realized that her initial breakthrough had been just the beginning. The Maya had left behind a vast intellectual treasure trove, encoded within their inscriptions and waiting for someone with the right mathematical tools to unlock its secrets. Each discovery led to new questions and possibilities for future research. The quiet woman who had once sat unnoticed in a corner had become the center of a scientific revolution that would reshape humanity's understanding of its ancient past. But for Elena, the most important validation came not from academic recognition or career advancement, but from the growing certainty that she was fulfilling her grandmother's belief that every symbol tells a story to those willing to listen with both heart and mind. 2 years after her groundbreaking presentation, Elena stood in the humid jungle of Guatemala, surrounded by the towering temples of Tikal. The ancient Maya city rose from the rainforest canopy, like a testament to human achievement, its limestone pyramids reaching toward the sky exactly as they had for over 1,000 years. But now, thanks to Elena's discoveries, researchers understood these monuments in an entirely new light. Dr. Carmen Gutierrez, the lead archaeologist for the Tikal excavation team, approached Elena with obvious excitement. Elena, the ground-penetrating radar has identified what appears to be a hidden chamber beneath temple, which the preliminary scans suggest it contains intact, hieroglyphic inscriptions that could be the largest unread Maya text ever discovered. Elena felt her pulse quicken. Temple 4 was the tallest pre-Columbian structure in the Americas, and the possibility of finding new Maya writings filled her with the same excitement she had experienced during her years at Stanford. How soon can we access the chamber, Carmen? The engineering team estimates another week to create a safe entrance, Carmen replied. But Elena, based on what we can see through the radar imaging, this chamber appears to have been deliberately sealed. The Maya may have created it specifically to preserve important information for future discovery. The implications were extraordinary. Elena's mathematical analysis had already revealed that Maya scribes often embedded information intended for future generations within their texts. The discovery of a deliberately preserved chamber suggested they had also physically hidden important knowledge, waiting for the right time and the right methods to reveal their secrets. Elena's research team had expanded significantly since her Harvard sabbatical. She now led an international consortium of researchers, applying her mathematical methods to ancient writing systems around the world. The Elena Martinez Institute for Ancient Mathematics, established with support from the National Science Foundation and several major universities, had become the leading center for interdisciplinary research combining archaeology, linguistics, and advanced mathematical analysis. Dr. Chen had permanently relocated from Yale to work with Elena's team, bringing expertise in Chinese and Egyptian writing systems. Dr. Patterson had taken a leave of absence from the University of Chicago to focus on Maya linguistics research. Most remarkably, Dr. Pemberton had become one of Elena's closest collaborators, abandoning his earlier skepticism to embrace the revolutionary possibilities her work had revealed. The team's discoveries had continued to reshape understanding of ancient civilizations. Elena's methods had revealed hidden mathematical patterns in Egyptian hieroglyphs, suggesting that the pharaonic scribes had also embedded multiple layers of meaning within their texts. Chinese oracle bone inscriptions showed evidence of sophisticated numerical encoding that had gone unrecognized for millennia. But the Maya remained the most advanced, practitioners of multidimensional writing systems. Each new text Elena's team analyzed revealed additional evidence of intellectual sophistication that challenged every assumption about ancient capabilities. As Elena waited for access to the hidden chamber beneath Temple 4, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed. The unknown graduate student who had nervously approached the conference registration desk had become one of the most recognizable figures in archaeology. Her TED Talk about Maya mathematical achievements had been viewed millions of times. Her book, The Mathematical Maya, Decoding Ancient Information Systems, had become an international bestseller. More importantly, Elena's work had inspired a new generation of researchers to approach ancient civilizations with fresh perspectives. Graduate students around the world were developing mathematical techniques for analyzing historical texts, archaeological sites, and cultural artifacts. The interdisciplinary approach Elena had pioneered was transforming multiple academic fields. Elena's mother called from New Mexico with news that brought tears to her eyes. Mija, the university has established a scholarship in Abuela Rosa's name for students from underrepresented communities who want to study archaeology and mathematics. They said your grandmother's wisdom helped change how we understand ancient peoples. The Rosa Martinez Memorial Scholarship represented something Elena valued more than any academic achievement. Her grandmother's intuitive understanding of patterns and symbols would help future generations of researchers discover secrets hidden within humanity's ancient past. Dr. Morrison arrived in Guatemala the day before the chamber was scheduled to be opened. Now in his 70s, he had become one of Elena's most enthusiastic supporters and frequently traveled to observe her team's work. "Elena, I've been thinking about your grandmother's influence on your research," he said, as they walked through the ancient plaza at Tikal. "She possessed a kind of wisdom that formal education sometimes obscures. You've managed to combine her intuitive understanding with rigorous mathematical analysis in ways that reveal truths others missed." Elena smiled, feeling Rosa's presence strongly in the ancient city. "Dr. Morrison, I think the Maya would have understood Abuela perfectly. They saw connections between mathematics, astronomy, literature, and spirituality that we've only recently begun to appreciate." She had the same holistic perspective. The morning of the chamber opening, Elena's team assembled around Temple 4 with equipment for documenting and analyzing whatever they might discover. Carmen's engineering team had created a carefully controlled entrance that would preserve the chamber's contents while allowing safe access. As Elena descended into the hidden chamber, her flashlight illuminated walls covered with hieroglyphic inscriptions unlike anything she had ever seen. The texts appeared to be comprehensive educational materials, complete Maya University courses covering mathematics, astronomy, engineering, and philosophy. The chamber had been designed as a time capsule, preserving the civilization's greatest intellectual achievements for future discovery. "Elena, look at this," called Dr. Patterson from across the chamber. "These inscriptions appear to be about the mathematical encoding system you discovered. It's like finding a Maya textbook explaining exactly how their information systems worked." Elena approached the wall Patterson indicated, her heart racing as she recognized the mathematical patterns her algorithms had identified in other texts. But these inscriptions were different. They were explicit explanations rather than encoded information. The Maya scribes who had created this chamber had provided clear instructions for understanding their advanced writing systems. "They knew," Elena whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The Maya who sealed this chamber knew that future generations would need help understanding their true intellectual achievements. They created this as a gift for researchers like us." Dr. Chen was documenting inscriptions on the opposite wall, her excitement evident in her rapid-fire photography. "Elena, these texts contain mathematical proofs that won't be formally recognized by European mathematics for another 500 years. The Maya had developed calculus concepts, advanced geometry, and statistical analysis techniques that surpass anything we attributed to ancient civilizations." As Elena's team spent hours documenting the chamber's contents, the magnitude of their discovery became clear. The Maya hadn't just created sophisticated writing systems. They had developed comprehensive educational programs for preserving and transmitting advanced knowledge across generations. The chamber represented their ultimate achievement in information preservation technology. Elena felt her grandmother's presence strongly as she photographed inscriptions that would revolutionize understanding of human intellectual development. Rosa Martinez had always insisted that ancient peoples possessed profound wisdom. Now, in a hidden chamber beneath a Maya temple, Elena had discovered proof that her grandmother's intuitions were remarkably accurate. The quiet woman from New Mexico, who had learned about patterns from her grandmother, had uncovered one of archaeology's greatest treasures. But more than that, she had proven that intellectual achievement knows no boundaries of time, culture, or educational privilege. The Maya mathematicians who had created these texts would have recognized Rosa Martinez as a kindred spirit, someone who understood that true wisdom comes from learning to see connections that others overlook. 5 years had passed since Elena's discovery of the hidden chamber at Tikal, and the world of archaeology had been permanently transformed. The Elena Martinez Institute had grown into an international research center with branch offices in Mexico City, Guatemala City, and Mérida, employing dozens of researchers who applied mathematical analysis to ancient writing systems from around the globe. Elena stood before the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization in Paris, addressing delegates from 195 countries about the implications of her discoveries for understanding human civilization. The same woman who had once sat nervously in a conference corner was now recognized as one of the world's leading authorities on ancient intellectual achievement. Distinguished delegates, Elena began, her voice carrying the confidence that came from years of groundbreaking research. The mathematical analysis of Maya writing systems has revealed that our ancestors possessed intellectual capabilities far beyond what we previously understood. These discoveries force us to reconsider fundamental assumptions about human development and the sophistication of ancient civilizations. Behind her, a large screen displayed images from the Tikal chamber, showing Maya mathematical formulas that had preceded European discoveries by centuries. The audience of international officials, archaeologists, and cultural preservation experts listened with rapt attention as Elena explained how her grandmother's wisdom about patterns had led to revolutionary insights about human history. The Maya created the world's first multimedia information systems, Elena continued, embedding mathematical calculations, astronomical predictions, historical narratives, and educational materials within single texts. They achieved a level of intellectual sophistication that we are only now beginning to appreciate through advanced computational analysis. Director General Marie Dubois of UNESCO approached the podium after Elena's presentation, her expression reflecting the international organization's commitment to preserving humanity's cultural heritage. Dr. Martinez, your discoveries have fundamentally changed how we understand ancient civilizations. UNESCO is prepared to support the establishment of new research protocols that will apply your mathematical methods to threatened archaeological sites worldwide. The recognition was gratifying, but Elena remained focused on the scientific work that continued to reveal new secrets about human intellectual achievement. Her team's analysis of the Tikal chamber texts had led to discoveries that challenged every assumption about ancient capabilities. The Maya mathematicians had developed concepts that modern science was still exploring. Their understanding of complex systems, environmental modeling, and sustainable resource management had enabled them to maintain sophisticated cities in challenging tropical environments for over 1,000 years. Their mathematical models for agricultural planning, water management, and urban development demonstrated intellectual achievements that rivaled contemporary capabilities. Most remarkably, Elena's team had discovered evidence that Maya scholars had developed early forms of what would later be called systems thinking, recognizing connections between social, environmental, and economic factors that wouldn't be formally studied until the 20th century. Their holistic approach to knowledge had enabled them to create sustainable civilizations that modern societies struggled to emulate. Dr. Rodriguez, now a professor at the University of Pennsylvania and one of Elena's former graduate students, had made his own breakthrough by applying her methods to Maya architectural sites. Elena, the mathematical analysis reveals that Maya cities weren't just built according to astronomical alignments, he reported during a video conference with the Institute's research teams. They were designed as three-dimensional information systems, with building layouts that encode complex mathematical relationships and environmental data. The implications extended far beyond archaeology. Urban planners studied Maya city designs for insights into sustainable development. Environmental scientists examined Maya agricultural techniques for solutions to contemporary climate challenges. Computer programmers analyzed Maya information encoding systems for applications in data storage and retrieval. Elena's influence had reached beyond academic circles. Her story had inspired countless young people from underrepresented communities to pursue careers in science and archaeology. The Rosa Martinez Memorial Scholarship had grown into an international program supporting students who combined traditional wisdom with modern research methods. During a quiet evening in her office at the Institute, Elena received a call from her mother in New Mexico. Maria Martinez's voice carried pride and wonder as she shared news from home. Mija, the tribal council has asked me to tell you that they want to honor you and Abuela Rosa at next month's harvest ceremony. They say your discoveries prove what our elders always knew, that ancient peoples possessed great wisdom that modern world has forgotten. Elena felt tears welling up as she considered the journey that had brought her to this moment. From her grandmother's kitchen table in New Mexico to international recognition at UNESCO, she had followed a path guided by Rosa Martinez's belief that every symbol tells a story to those willing to listen with both heart and mind. The mathematical algorithms that had revolutionized Maya studies were being applied to writing systems from every ancient civilization. Elena's methods had revealed hidden patterns in Mesopotamian cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphs, Indus Valley seals, and Chinese oracle bones. Each analysis uncovered new evidence of intellectual sophistication that challenged traditional assumptions about human development. Dr. Chen, now co-director of the institute, had established a program for training indigenous researchers in mathematical analysis techniques. Elena, we're discovering that traditional knowledge holders often possess intuitive understanding of patterns that our computational methods can verify and expand, she reported during a staff meeting. Your grandmother's influence on your work has shown us the value of combining different ways of knowing. The Institute had become a bridge between traditional wisdom and modern science, demonstrating that the most significant discoveries often came from combining different perspectives and methodologies. Elena's success had proven that intellectual achievement could emerge from any background, given opportunity and support. As Elena prepared for her evening walk through the Institute's gardens, she reflected on the transformation her life had undergone. The quiet graduate student who had once hidden in conference corners had become a leader in revolutionizing human understanding of ancient civilizations. But more importantly, she had fulfilled her grandmother's belief in the power of pattern recognition and the wisdom embedded within ancient symbols. The Maya scribes, who had created the Tikal chamber, would have understood Rosa Martinez perfectly. Both had recognized that knowledge transcends individual lifetimes, that wisdom can be preserved and transmitted across generations through those willing to look deeply and listen carefully. Elena had become the bridge between their ancient insights and contemporary understanding, proving that the most profound discoveries come to those who approach the world with both analytical rigor and intuitive wisdom. The woman, who had sat unnoticed in the corner, had revealed secrets that transformed humanity's understanding of its own intellectual heritage. Through mathematical analysis guided by her grandmother's wisdom, Elena Martinez had demonstrated that the boundaries between ancient and modern, traditional and scientific, were far less significant than the connections that united human achievement across time and culture. In the end, Elena's greatest discovery wasn't about Maya mathematics or ancient writing systems. It was about the timeless human capacity for wisdom, innovation, and the preservation of knowledge across generations. Her grandmother's legacy lived on in every decoded glyph, every revealed pattern, and every young researcher inspired to see the world with fresh eyes and an open heart.